Happy holidays, everybody, and Tony here. Before I do my tribute to the third Fresh Prince of Bel-Air Christmas episode, 'Twas the Night Before Christening, considering that this was Daphne Maxwell Reid's first Christmas episode as the new Aunt Viv, I'd like to talk about a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air moment which has been ingrained in television sitcom history, as well as something that I realized was far too rich and far too intricate to compartmentalize into one solitary video, let alone ignore it. I'm talking about Aunt Viv's cast change, which occurred in season 4, specifically in 1993. For those of you not in the know, Vivian Aunt Viv Banks was portrayed by two different actresses. From seasons 1 to 3, she was portrayed by Janet Hubert, and from seasons 4 to 6, she was portrayed by Daphne Maxwell Reid. What has occurred in this cast change was a real-life event that was incorporated in one of the episodes. Behind-the-scenes drama, especially occurring between Janet Hubert, Will Smith, and Alfonso Ribeiro, and a new contract that Janet Hubert was not in particular favor of. During the second episode of the third season, Will Gets Committed, we see Aunt Viv acting really peculiarly around Uncle Phil, especially when they and the family head to an old shelter that the Banks used to live in before they traverse to their Bel-Air mansion. It's revealed in the ending that Aunt Viv surprises Uncle Phil that she is pregnant. This is also to accommodate the real-life pregnancy that happened with Janet Hubert back in 1992. The remainder of the third season sees Aunt Viv going through the trials and tribulations of being pregnant until she ends up giving birth to the youngest Banks child, Nicholas Andrew Banks. I will also address that middle name retcon that occurred in 'Twas the Night Before Christening. Aunt Viv definitely went through such a major personality change, not only with her actresses, but how she was written as a character. In the first season, as well as the second season, she is a career woman, more specifically a university professor who is driven, well-rounded, intelligent, takes no crap from anybody, and is so strong in her authority as both a professor and a mother to her children. She has also never forgotten about her West Philadelphia roots, especially when it came to the strong bond she and her sisters, Vi, Helen, and Janice have. Lest we also forget about how much Aunt Viv had to work from being a high school dropout to obtaining her GED, to getting her bachelor's degree after working so many years in a hotel as a maid, and eventually obtaining her doctorate, thus acquiring professorship, teaching English literature, and having one stint as a teacher for African American Studies at Bel-Air Academy. Although Aunt Viv is appointed as the new teacher for African American Studies, Will and Carlton thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to get easy A's. Aunt Viv finds out about this and has a heart-to-heart with Will. She reminds Will that he can read the autobiography of Malcolm X several times. He can put up all the posters on his wall, and he can shout the slogans, and he can do everything in his power to preserve the quote-unquote memory of Malcolm X alive. But unless Will knows all the history behind it, he is just trivializing all the struggles that Black Americans had to undergo in order to attain freedom as well as equal rights. This discussion closes when Aunt Viv remarks that Will has started something really good here, but it is up to him to follow through on that. And it was that moment in the ethnic tip that I started to love Aunt Viv a lot more as a role model, as well as be totally captivated by Janet Hubert's performance as Aunt Viv. Aside from being a university professor, mother, and wife, she's also surprisingly strong and graceful as a dancer, as evidenced in season 2, where she was able to outdance many young dancers after her several occasions of failure. And she was able to dance a routine that is both rigorous and exciting, but also proved that she could still have it at 40. Prior to that dance scene, Aunt Viv also proves herself to be a very strong and capable singer, given that she has used her magnificent pipes to sing a whole bunch of rock songs and ballads in the episode Someday My Prince Will Come Into Effect. This is attributed to Janet Hubert's experience as an actress, singer, and dancer on Broadway, as well as her training as a student of Juilliard. Janet Hubert's experience as a performing artist also meant that she demanded absolute professionalism on set. However, not everyone was going to click with that, especially the young Will Smith and the young Alfonso Ribeiro. This clash in ideas has unfortunately led Janet Hubert to be involved in a feud between her and Will Smith and Alfonso Ribeiro. Will Smith told an Atlanta radio talk show that he found Janet Hubert exceedingly difficult to work with and wanted the show to be called the Aunt Viv of Bel-Air show. Not helping matters was Alfonso Ribeiro, who in a 2009 stand-up show headlined by him stated that Hubert was not only difficult to work with, but also went off on the cast and the crew, and in his words, went nuts. However, Janet Hubert contended that all of Will Smith's and Alfonso Ribeiro's claims were null and void. During the show's third season, she was dealing with her pregnancy, and if the thought of giving birth to a new child was hard enough, she was also dealing with an ex-husband who was laid off of work. And there was more than just Hubert's new duties as a mother. There was also a power play that occurred during the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's run. While Will Smith's star was shining and ever increasing, Janet Hubert's star was slowly fading. Furthermore, Hubert also had to be relegated to sit at the back seat because she did not laugh at a lot of Will Smith's jokes. On a professional level, she was even given a contract by NBC stating that she was only allowed to work for 10 weeks and could not endeavor to work in other projects. This also meant that with the 10 weeks of working, her role was going to be reduced, and so was her salary. Not wanting to remain under those terms, she ended up leaving before the fourth season started. And in terms of how Will Smith and Janet Hubert resolved their feud, I could go on and on and on and proceed much further, but that is a topic for another video. But suffice it to say, I'm actually glad that both Will Smith and Janet Hubert resolved their issues, although it did take 27 years for them to resolve this feud, which has otherwise broken their relationship at first, but with them reconciling, the wounds of the past have been healed. Therefore, Janet Hubert was not fired for her negative attitude, but she was given a not-so-ideal contract. She was undergoing an upcoming pregnancy, and her personal life was unfortunately in shambles because of everything that occurred. At least these days, her acting career did see a renaissance as she was in more television shows, especially in terms of her being a recurring cast member in General Hospital. And now I shall shift my focus to Daphne Maxwell Reid as the new Aunt Viv. As I stated before, Aunt Viv's characterization has been diminishing with every subsequent episode. She went from being this driven career woman in the first and second season to undergoing a pregnancy in the third season, to being this housewife slash homemaker from seasons 4 to 6. Therefore, Aunt Viv's agency as a character has also been diminishing, where Uncle Phil's characterization grew stronger, especially when it came to his professional life, going from being a lawyer to being a judge, as well as having really tender moments of him being a father to Will. The kids ended up having the lion's share of character development. Hillary went from being an uninterested college student and eventually college dropout to searching for various jobs until landing a gig as a weather girl before starting her own talk show. Will and Carlton went from teenage boys in high school to young men in college, with Will becoming a lot more vulnerable as the series rolls on, especially in Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse, as well as Bullets Over Bel-Air, and Carlton realizing that the system he thought he supported isn't really as rosy as he thought it was, especially when it came to the latter episode. Then there's Ashley, who seemed to have gone through the most metamorphosis, starting the series off as a young, bright, wide-eyed, innocent girl who admired Will so much to the point where she looks up to him as an older brother from another mother, to becoming a lot more independent-minded yet rebellious as a teenager, considering that she's also had career perspectives from being a singer to being a model. So it's easy to say that the lion's share of character development ended up belonging to Hilary, Will, Carlton, and Ashley at the expense of Aunt Viv. And as much as it's easy to blame the change in actors, it's also the writers not really being so sure how to develop this character even further, which was kind of a shame because Aunt Viv had a lot of strong moments in the show's first 3 seasons and was therefore a very memorable character. The amount of memorability in the later seasons were not as strong because of just how much agency she was lacking. And that's also what I've noticed in terms of the reception of Aunt Viv being portrayed by Daphne Maxwell Reid. At best, the reception was alright and tolerable, and at worst, the negative reception was relegated to her not being as active as she was in the previous episodes, and her not having as much agency, and her not maintaining that strength that she was very well known for in the earlier episodes. However, in spite of those criticisms, I'm still willing to defend Daphne Maxwell Reid as Aunt Viv because she also had some moments of strength and a lot of moments of dignity. Yes, she is no Janet Hubert, and yes, I understand that Daphne Maxwell Reid had a lot of huge shoes to fill in as the second Aunt Viv. And it's interesting to note that she and Hubert never met in real life until the 30th anniversary of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So my take on Daphne Maxwell Reid's Aunt Viv is that although she is not as memorable as Janet Hubert's Aunt Viv, as I prefer her portrayal of Aunt Viv to Daphne Maxwell Reid's, I will contend that she does have her moments of strength. We cannot overlook Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse, where she gives Will's biological father, Lou Smith, played by Ben Vereen, an ultimatum by stating that should Lou ever abandon Will again, he is never permitted to come back to him, let alone to the entire family. In It's a Wonderful Lie, Daphne Maxwell Reid was still able to imbue Aunt Viv with a logical and strong sense of authority, especially when it came to reprimanding Ashley for her foolish deeds, ranging from kissing a college boy at a party, therefore lying to both Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv about her going ice skating, and eventually running away before returning, and reminding Ashley that trust is such a fragile thing and she has to earn it all back. Therefore, although I highly prefer Janet Hubert as Aunt Viv, as she was able to give her a strong sense of authority, vibrance, well-roundedness, and that fierceness she has as an authority figure, a mother figure, and a wife, I still have to give Daphne Maxwell Reid her props because she was still able to be as strong as a performer. Daphne Maxwell Reid's Aunt Viv might have dripped in agency, but she was still strong in terms of authority as well as composure. When learning about how Aunt Viv was being recasted, it was very fascinating to know just how many sides there were to the whole discourse of Janet Hubert being replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid. Cast members such as Joseph Marcel and Tatiana Ali were rather neutral on this and were therefore diplomatic about their approach to how they reacted with the whole recast thing. And in spite of the new Aunt Viv's reception, at least she still had her moments, although a lot of us will always come back to the original Aunt Viv portrayed by Janet Hubert. Even Daphne Maxwell Reid stated that whatever Aunt Viv people preferred, whether they preferred Janet Hubert as Aunt Viv or her as Aunt Viv, it's completely fine with her. So there you have it, my take on the recasting of Aunt Viv. It wasn't really as easy as I thought it was, but it was really interesting to learn about this discourse as well as understand the behind-the-scenes drama that occurred. And let's just say that I cannot even wait to talk about Will Smith and Janet Hubert finally reconciling after so many years of feuding and not talking to each other. Because Will Smith and Janet Hubert finally being reconciled is not only the tonic they needed, but one that we the fans have been anticipating for many years. And for those of you who have followed the recast of Aunt Viv during the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's run, what'd you think of it? Did you always prefer Janet Hubert as the original Aunt Viv as opposed to Daphne Maxwell Reid as the new Aunt Viv, or vice versa? Was there a moment that you thought enlightened you and made you realize that that was going on behind the set? Or was there something about this whole discourse that rubbed you the wrong way? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's it for my look back on the recasting of Aunt Viv. Tune in much later where I finally do a tribute on the third Fresh Prince of Bel-Air Christmas episode, 'Twas the Night Before Christening. So until then, happy holidays, everybody!